Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to day 11 of Gyan Group. And hope you're all doing well. And let's continue reading from where we left last time. I know I've been a bit irregular, but I'll try to be a bit more sincere in my attempt to to make this a more regular um, happening. So let's dive immediately back into where we left. Um an inferiority complex is an excuse, youth. But you can say for sure that feelings of inferiority are really a problem of interpersonal relationships. Even the kind of person who is regarded socially as a success, who doesn't need to debase himself in relationships with other people, still has some feelings of inferiority. Even the businessman who amasses enormous wealth, the peerless beauty who is the envy of all, and the Olympic gold medalist, every one of them would be plagued by feelings of inferiority. Well, that's how it seems to me. How should I think about this? Is what the youth is asking the philosopher. The philosopher says Adler recognizes that feelings of inferiority are something that everyone has. There's nothing bad about feelings of inferiority themselves, youth. So, why do people have them in the first place? Philosopher. It's probably necessary to understand this in a certain order. First of all, people enter this world as helpless beings, and people have the universal desire to escape from that helpless state. Adler called this pursuit of superiority. Youth. What is pursuit of superiority? Philosopher. This is something you could think of as simply hoping to improve or pursuing an ideal state. For instance, a toddler learns to steady himself on both legs. He has the universal desire to learn language and to improve. And all the advancements of science throughout human history are due to this pursuit of superiority too. Youth. Okay. And then the philosopher. The counterpart of this is the feeling of inferiority. So just because we have this continuous feeling that we need to reach somewhere higher, this is a lifelong pursuit of superiority. And the counterpart of this is the feeling of inferiority. He explains everyone is in this condition of wanting to improve. That is the pursuit of superiority. One holds up various ideals or goals and heads toward them. However, on not being able to reach one's ideals, one harbors a sense of being lesser. For instance, there are chefs who, the more inspired and accomplished they become, are forever beset with the sort of feeling of inferiority that makes to say make that makes them say to themselves, I'm still not good enough, or I've got to bring my cooking to the next level, and that sort of thing. And I think this is true. All of us go through this a lot. I think all of us face this, think about this. There's a constant struggle within us which tells us, no, no, there's something amiss here. I need to reach somewhere higher. And I think the whole world essentially, or all of us are doing this for that, due to that feeling. Youth, that's true. Philosopher. Adler is saying that the pursuit of superiority and the feeling of inferiority are not diseases, but stimulants to normal, healthy striving and growth. If it's not used in the wrong way, the feeling of inferiority too can promote striving and growth. Youth. The feeling of inferiority is a kind of launch pad, you mean? Philosopher. That's right. One tries to get rid of one's feeling of inferiority and keep moving forward. One's never satisfied with one's present situation. One is never satisfied with one's present situation. Even if it's just a single step, one wants to make progress. One wants to be happier. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the state of this kind of feeling of inferiority. There are, however, people who lose the courage to take a single step forward and who cannot accept the fact that the situation can be changed by making realistic efforts. People who, before even doing anything, simply give up and say all things like, I'm not good enough anyway, or even if I tried, I wouldn't stand a chance. Youth, well, that's true. There's no doubt about it. If the feeling of inferiority is strong, most people will become negative and say, I'm not good enough anyway, because that's what a feeling of inferiority is. The philosopher, no, that's not a feeling of inferiority, that's an inferiority complex. Youth, a complex, that's what the feeling of inferiority is, isn't it? I'm liking it because here he's saying, he's talking about the difference between a feeling of inferiority which leads us to search happiness, or it's almost like helping us to take a step forward, um like something that jolt pushes us to do something, to be happier or to improve. But now he's giving us a difference between inferiority, feeling of inferiority, and inferiority complex. So let's see. The youth, concurrently, how are they different? Philosopher, there is nothing particularly wrong with the feeling of inferiority itself. You understand this point now, right? As Adler says, the feeling of inferiority can be a trigger for striving and growth. For instance, if one had a feeling of inferiority with regard to one's education and resolved to oneself, I'm not well educated, so I'll just have to try harder than anyone else. That would be a desirable direction. That's a good example. The inferiority complex, on the other hand, refers to a condition of having begun to use one's feelings of inferiority as a kind of excuse. So one thinks to oneself, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed, or I'm not good looking, so I can't get married. When someone is insisting on the logic of A is the situation, so B cannot be done, in such a way in everyday life, that is not something that fits the feeling of inferiority category. It is an inferiority complex. Youth. No, it's a legitimate causal relationship. If you're not well educated, it takes away your chances of getting work or making it in the world. You're regarded as low on the social scale and you can't succeed. That's not an excuse at all. It's just a cold, hard fact, isn't it? The philosopher says, no, you're wrong. Youth. How? Where am I wrong? The philosopher says, what you are calling a causal relationship is something that Adler explains as apparent cause and effect. That is to say, you convince yourself that there is some serious causal relationship where there is none whatsoever. The other day, someone told me, so what, just going back, he's trying to say that when you think that you cannot, because you are deficient in this, or because you are in this situation A, you cannot come to a situation B, or B is not happening because of A. And here the philosopher is trying to say that this is what is complex, and this is not a feeling, not a feeling in the positive sense. The youth is trying to argue to this because this is straightforward, right? Even, yeah, many of them. So the philosopher is justifying himself that this is an apparent cause and effect. That is to say, you convince yourself that there is some serious causal relationship where there is none whatsoever. The other day, someone told me the reason I can't get married easily is that my parents got divorced when I was a child. From the viewpoint of Freudian etiology, the attributing cause, the parents' divorce, was a great trauma, which connects in a clear causal relationship with one's view on marriage. Adler, however, with his stance of teleology, the attributing of purpose, rejects such argument as apparent cause and effect. Youth. But even so, the reality is that having a good education makes it easier to be successful in society. I thought you were very wise to the ways of the world. Philosopher. The real issue is how one confronts that reality. If what you are thinking is, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed, then instead of I can't succeed, you should think, I don't want to succeed. Youth, I don't want to succeed. What kind of reasoning is that? Philosopher, it is simply that it's scary to take even one step forward. Also, that you don't want to make realistic efforts. You don't want to change so much that you would be willing to sacrifice the pleasures you enjoy now. For instance, the time you spend playing and engaged in hobbies. In other words, you're not equipped with the courage to change your lifestyle. It is easier with things just as they are now, even if you have some complaints or limitations. That's beautiful because he's trying to say that we sort of become complacent with what we're doing, and like we don't want to change. We find it change is something that's uncomfortable, and that's why we want to be in that safe space and not step outside of that. So that's a great insight. Let's move forward. Braggarts have feelings of inferiority. That's the name of the subchapter. So we continue from where we left. Youth, maybe so, but philosopher says further, you harbor an inferiority complex about education and think, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed. Put the other way around, the reasoning can be, if only I were well educated, I could be really successful. True, says the youth. The philosopher says this is the other aspect of inferiority complex. Those who manifest this inferiority complexes in words or attitudes, who say that A is the situation, so B cannot be done, are implying that if only it were not for A, I'd be capable and have value. The youth, if only it weren't for this, I could do it too. The philosopher, yes. As Adler points out, no one is capable of putting up with having feelings of inferiority for a long period of time. Feelings of inferiority are something that everyone has, but staying in that condition is too heavy to endure forever. That's true because all of us naturally want to be free from it. Youth, I'm not understanding. This is getting pretty confusing. The philosopher says, okay, let's go over things one at a time. The condition of having a feeling of inferiority is a condition of feeling some sort of lack in oneself in the present situation. So then the question is, how do you fill in the part that's missing, right? Says the youth. The philosopher. Exactly. So I totally agree with this that there is a deep sense that there is some lack in oneself. And so the next question how do I fill that? The philosopher says how to compensate for the part that is lacking. The healthiest way is to try to compensate through striving and growth. That's natural. For instance, it could be by applying oneself to one's studies, engaging in constant training, or being diligent in one's work. However, people who aren't equipped with that courage end up stepping into an inferiority complex. This is beautiful. So he's saying the inferiority feeling is natural, that gives rise to a feeling of there is some lack within me and there's something missing and I need to fill that part. So the most healthy response is that I would strive towards improvement. But some people they don't, and I will do that by training diligently, or developing a certain kind of habit or a discipline. But people who don't have that courage, they fall into the inferiority complex. Again, it's thinking, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed. And it's implying your capability by saying, if only I were well educated, I could be really successful. That the real me, which just happens to be obscured right now by the matter of education, is superior. Wow. Yes, no. So this is another beautiful point, that the real me is actually superior, but because of the situations, I can't come up. The youth. So no, that doesn't make sense. The second thing you're saying is beyond being a feeling of inferiority. That's really more bravado than anything else, isn't it? Philosopher. Indeed. The inferiority complex can also develop into another special mental state. And what is that? The philosopher says, I doubt you have heard about it. It's the superiority complex. The youth. Superiority complex? What does that mean? The philosopher says one is suffering from strong feelings of inferiority. And on top of that, one doesn't have the courage to compensate through healthy modes of striving and growth. That being said, one can't tolerate the inferiority complex of thinking. A is the situation, so B cannot be done. One can't accept one's incapable self. At that point, the person thinks of trying to compensate in some other fashion and looks for an easier way out. The youth. What way is that? Philosopher. It's to act as if one is indeed superior and to indulge in a fabricated feeling of superiority. The youth. Can you explain a fabricated feeling of superiority? The philosopher. A familiar example would be giving authority. What does that mean? The youth asks. The philosopher says one makes a show of being on good terms with a powerful person. Broadly speaking, it could be anyone from the leader of your school class to a famous celebrity. I think that happens very commonly, and it's a very, very nice observation that to you sort of become in what do they call? You become like a hyena, right? You've seen that in the in Lion King, the hyena, actually the hyena's intention is something different, but she become they become not she the hyenas become uh, almost almost what's the uncle's name? Simba, um, and Simba's uncle, the lion who killed his father, and they almost start getting, so they start they start having the company of a lion. Yeah. And by doing that, one lets it be known that one is special. So one becomes special by associating themselves with somebody famous or somebody who's superior. Behaviors like misrepresenting one's work experience or excessive allegiance to particular brands of clothing are forms of giving authority. So you give authority to somebody else, and probably also have aspects of the superiority complex. In each case, it isn't that the I is actually superior or special. It is only that the one is making the I look superior by linking it to authority. In short, it's a fabricated feeling of superiority. Beautiful. Youth. And at the base of that, there is an intense feeling of inferiority. So, in that, inside, it's so intense that you want to almost overcompensate by associating yourself with authority or associating yourself with somebody superior. Philosopher. Of course, I don't know much about fashion, but I think it's advisable to think of people who wear rings with rubies and emeralds on all their fingers as having issues with feelings of inferiority rather than issues of aesthetic sensibility. In other words, they have signs of a superiority complex. That's beautiful. And that has been my observation in quite a number of people. Youth, right? Philosopher. But those who make themselves look bigger on borrowed power are essentially living according to other people's value systems. They are living other people's lives. This is a point that must be emphasized. So, a superiority complex, that's a very interesting psychology, says the youth. Can you give me a different example? I'm just going to scroll down how big this is so it doesn't become over. Yeah. So in the next video, we'll continue with this chapter, and the youth is asking the philosopher what is another example for this superiority complex. And yeah, I hope you enjoy and agree with what we just read, and give yourself some time for reflection. If you find you need to s- um, scroll back and listen to it again, you should. I think it's very valid what he's trying to say here. Hope you enjoy this video. Enjoy your upcoming meditation for 5 minutes, and see you in the next video. Please do like, share, and comment, and hit the notification bell so you are notified when I upload the video. Lots of love. Bye bye. Close your eyes, bring yourself in a graceful posture. Bring your attention to your breath. Take your own time. And if you feel like, you can rub your palms, bring them over your eyes and face. And welcome back.